Hallelujah. Blessed be the Most High, creator of heaven and earth, creator of all things and everything. It is with extreme pleasure that I welcome Lady Catherine Berry from Congregation Temple Beth, located in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is a series of interviews that I'm conducting, interviewing the elders of this particular congregation, this congregation of Yisrael and the community of Yisrael. And I have the pleasure of sitting down with all of our elders and be able to pick their brains a little in the history of this congregation. So, Lady Catherine, how are you?
I'm well, and take that you are too.
I'm doing very good. I'm grateful to the Creator. I had a great Shabbat day, and I hope that you've had a great one. You know, in spite of all of the things that are going on with this pandemic, I hope that you've had some semblance of a good Shabbat day or good a good time. I mean, it's time for us to be shut in. The Most High God has put a plague in the midst of us, and we must adhere to it. So there's not much that we could do. But I hope that you're safe.
Yes, that's true. The only thing we can do is ride it out, holding
Ride it
on
out.
to, yep, ride it out, holding on to the Creator's hand and let Him guide us through this maze.
Hallelujah. So I want to start out with you. As I start out my interviews, I like to start out with a person's beginnings. You know, where they're from. If you don't mind sharing that with me, I'll appreciate it if it was, because I like to start more so from your beginning, so that people know a little bit about you outside of your journey before you got to Temple Beth. So would you care to share your beginnings with us?
Yes, I can share my beginnings with you.
Okay.
I was born in New York City. Nellie and George Berry were my parents. I came to Philip. I lived in New York until I was 7 years old, and my parents moved to Philadelphia. I went
Okay.
back to New York at the age of 12, lived there with my brother, and then
Okay.
came back to um, Philly. It
Okay.
was 1963.
1963 came back
Yeah,
to Philly.
1963. It was about 1963. We lived in Philly. I really lived in Philly almost all my life until I went into the military.
Okay.
So so in 1965, I was remember I showed you a picture of
Right.
JC. In 1965, that picture was on the wall in my room. My mother had that on the wall in my room. I was changing the baby's diaper. I looked up, saw that picture, not that exact picture, but a picture with that figure praying. And I said to my friend who had come to visit, I like to meet him. I said, I want to meet him. So he said to me, I can take you to people who serve him. Because at the time, that's who we were serving, JC.
Okay.
So I came to their house and immediately, almost immediately, we bonded. I bonded rather, because he already knew the people. I
Right.
bonded with the Woodards. That was the family that ultimately got me to come into this way of life. Had it not been for them, I really would not have truly come to this way of life at 15, 14, 15. You're not interested in serving the
Right.
Creator, and especially not on a holy roly um, platform, because that's
Right.
what it looked like to me. So
Right.
I that's when I came there, and I eventually was coming off and on, off and on, and then finally I did attend one particular Friday night service.
Right.
That Friday night service, we did tarrying. he tarried almost, seemed like tarried all night long. And that's when I felt the anointing of the creator of the universe. Although we're still going serving JC. Then finally, in the 1970s, early 1970s, I got an eye opener to know that JC was not the creator of the universe. That's when I got introduced to the name Elohim. And then I start being more interested in serving the creator because now I had new knowledge. Who I was serving was not the real God. That
Right.
was not the creator of the universe. So
Right.
that's what brought me to, that's how I got to Congregation Temple Bethel. And that's when I felt the anointing. And that's when I began gradually putting myself into serving him and studying his word, going to Hebrew classes, and just following through with that. That's how I got to Congregation Temple Bethel. And I've been there under Mother Dailey. Mother Dailey was the leader. I came in under Louise Elizabeth Dailey. She was the leader at that time. And she was very instrumental in um, helping me as a young girl and as growing up, you know, in my particular life, the way I
Right.
grew up,
Right.
because, you know, you have a mother. The mother's always there. The father may not be there. So mother was like the father and mother in a sense, in
Okay.
helping me and getting me on the right path because I was what, young,
Right.
fly, you know, just free fall as you call it, and just
Right.
doing my own thing. But
Right.
she guided me. She told me what the expectations are for Congregation Temple Bethel. She said to me, she said the girls in our congregation, we wear our dresses below our knees, we keep our head covered, and that's the keep your head covered because that's to honor God. And she said we come every Sabbath. We come to congregation to the temple every Sabbath because that's the day of the Lord, the seventh day, that we don't worship on Sundays,
Right.
and that um, um, we come to uh, Bible class on Wednesdays. Bible class was always Wednesday nights, and if you didn't have a ride, she would make way for you to get back to your house if
Okay.
you stayed real late. So
Always looking out for the flock.
yeah, she was a great leader. I have to say she was a great leader, and she was well loved, and I really looked up to her, and I was really in tune to whatever she taught. You know, I just believed whatever she taught. Then as I was getting older, I realized that you have to do research for yourself because everything someone tell you is not always what it is. You have to
Right.
research, bring information back, and let us all look at it and see
Right.
if it's valid. So
Right.
as time went on, that's what happened. But in the
Right.
process of all that, I was married and my husband traveled. He was in the military. So I was in and out of Bethel. So when I came in town, I would go to service. But I lived in Texas. I, uh, I lived, and then I went into the military. So then I lived in Biloxi. I was there in San Francisco. Then I start traveling. So I was in and out with Bethel, but I went to other churches, you know, on the Sabbath when they were mainly Seventh Day Adventist churches, so
Right.
that I could be in a church on the Sabbath. And then
Okay.
finally in 1980, I think it was 87, 1987, when I came back home to live, and then I really focused on serving the Creator, coming to the service on Sabbath, dressing all blues on in the winter, dressing blue and white in the winter. dressing in all white in the summer, because that was Mother Dailey's dress code for us to distinguish us from everyone else. Then, but I never stopped coming to Congregation Temple Bethel even after she passed, and now her daughter, Deborah Ann Bowen, is the leader, Rabbi Deborah Ann Bowen. So I'm still here, but I've learned a lot, and I see serving the Creator a whole lot different than when I was serving the Creator under Mother Dailey, because I read a lot and I attend uh, workshops and classes so that I can be well versed in trying to understand this way of life, because it's pretty difficult. It's pretty difficult because you have so many denominations. You have and so many people serving the Creator differently. Why is
Right.
that? I don't know, but so many people serving the Creator differently. But my life coming to Bethel, from being, my parents were Baptists. They used to send us to church every Sunday, and the church was right next door to the house. All you had to do was step over
Had
the
no excuses, no excuses to
no
miss.
excuse. So every Sunday, my mother would send us right there to Reverend Wilson,
Right.
uh, next door, and that's where we would be on Sunday mornings there. And I used to look at that pastor, and actually, he actually turned me away from serving God at all when I was younger, because I was really
Oh,
young then. Simply
yeah. What did he do?
because, well, my mindset was this: if you go to church, you're a pastor. At that time, I'm a young kid now. At
Right.
that time, if you're a pastor and you're leading people, you had God puts you in on a higher platform, and your conduct has to be absolutely almost
Uh
pristine.
oh.
Well, because this is how I saw it. Well, my man here, when he come in, he would preach for a while, and then he would always say he had to take a break. Every time he took a break, and then he would tell his wife, play uh what was that? JC love me. That JC love me. Yes, he loves me. That
Right.
song. So
Right.
that's what she played when he went on break. And when he
Right.
came back from break, you could smell all the alcohol. He would take a break. I'm serious. I am.
He had to take some swigs, huh?
Yeah, he had to take some swigs, and that turned me off. That turned me off from him.
Right.
The other thing that turned me off with him, because he would club. He would he preached, but he lived.
A
A
secular life.
Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for, secular life. And I just felt that you're telling me, you're giving me the commandments, you're reading me all this, the Beatitudes and all this from the King James Version, but you're doing totally opposite what you're telling me not to do. So it took me a long time to even believe that, you believe in that serving God is worthwhile serving him. So it wasn't
Because
until
he
my
wasn't a
mother
good
was,
he wasn't a good example, being the supposed to be the figure that represents God at that time for you. He's doing whatever and wherever.
exactly, and that turned my mind until my mother moved to 601 North Street. I'll never forget that, because that's where I met uh, that's where that picture was on the wall, and that's where I finally got to meet people who really were serving, and I could see, because they were so warm, but they were very inquisitive when I went to Bethel at that time. So that helped me to understand a little at gradually of this way of life. And then when we came into the knowledge, when Mother Dailey came into the knowledge of the oneness, and she stood over the beamer, I'll never forget, and she said, I have something to tell you, but uh, many of you are not ready for it yet. That's what she said. I remember her saying that. And but at the time I had already heard the name Elohim. But when she introduced it, she was not wrong. Many people uh, had different views. Let's put it that way. Many people had different views because I think they thought she had lost her mind. But she
About
was like,
about about what year was it that she came into the? Do you recall like what time was it that she came into the oneness?
well, what I remember was, I believe, let's see, when did we move to Virginia? My husband and I, we went to, we were still in service. So it was, had to be 70, somewhere between 70 and 72.
70 and 72.
1970 and 72, because I was living in uh, Roanoke, Virginia. My husband and I and my daughter, we were living in um, Roanoke, Virginia at that time.
Okay.
Because I had that's when she really had just introduced it to the congregation, and
Okay.
that's when everything shifted, and we began serving the creator of the universe and as one.
So what
She
was
then,
the reaction? What was the reaction of? Because I could imagine you go. It's a drastic change from accepting JC as, or the Christ of the New Testament as, essentially God, or or in some instances the Son of God,
right,
right? And now you are totally eliminating him out of the picture and not even going into the book what he's spoken of. How was that for some congregants, and did everyone remain, or was it, or was there like instant, no, this can't be, and you know we have to
well,
go? How was it at that moment?
from my observation, when she stood over the roster and made that statement, it was like, you get it?
It was like, what?
I
I
said
didn't
it
hear.
was like, get it? Everybody was like, hush.
Hush, right?
Yeah,
I
everybody,
got it.
yeah, everybody was like, hush. But then as the days went on, members stopped coming,
Okay.
and in another direction with another leader. So
Okay.
that, yeah, and that's how that played out. It played out through their behavior. It played out through the hushness of it, because people believed real heavily in Mother Dailey. They believed in her almost like a god, like she was a god. There was those people who did believe in her like that. So
Right.
when she came out with that, it was like you have this big audience, and they all attentive to you.
Silence.
Yeah, and then suddenly you throw the bombs at them, and it's like they're frightened, too scared to move, not certain where you're going or what you're really saying. So you're frozen almost in time. But
Do
then
you do
when it
do
all
you
came,
remember the exact words? How the words came out? Like, do you remember like some a fragment or so of what her speech was that day? Like when she came up there and she said what she said.
well, see, that's the one thing that stood out so um uh um
Clearly.
clear to me, was the first thing she said, and I'm not going to forget this, that she had something to tell us, but
Right.
many of us are not ready for it.
Right.
Then when she did her sermon, what made it clear to her was Isaiah. Isaiah, the book Isaiah, where it says, I will give my glory to another.
Right. Neither my praise to any graven images. I will
Right,
not give my glory to another, neither my praise to any graven images.
right. And then the other one was that she quoted all the time, and that was that uh he's one.
Right. Shema Yisrael, that
The
one.
my
Hail
yeah,
Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one.
yes, he's
Right.
one. But
Right.
there's a verse in Isaiah, I think it's in Isaiah 42:50,
Right.
one of them, where it says that I, I,
I'm the
I,
first and I'm the last, and besides me there is no savior.
there you go. It's just him. I'm
Isaiah 43
I'm
verse 10.
right. So that those are the words I remember her, and I definitely remember her. She loved quoting Isaiah. Like God was his only one. He's not. There's no other. He's not sharing it with anybody. He didn't
Right.
give his word. He's. It's just him.
I created the heavens and the earth by myself.
Hmm.
Then all those, yes, all those chapters in Isaiah. This is very interesting because
Yeah,
it
because that
shows the
is.
transformation from being a essentially a Christian church or messianic type of temple, because I assume by this time you guys were already keeping the Sabbath, you guys were already keeping holy days, and this was just like the cherry on top. Like, hey, and by the way, Yah is one, and this God that we've been saying is his son is not really in the picture anymore. We only have to worship the Father, and we could forget about the Son. I could imagine that was, like you said, moment of silence. Some people, after they computed it in their minds, very next week or during that week, people were talking, whispering, and some people never came back from that day on.
That's right. You hit it. You
Yeah.
said it. You see. You got the vision of it because
Right.
that's exactly it. That's exactly what happened. And you're right.
So how many phone calls did you get during that week?
Well, I didn't get none, but I was there was the conversation that, well, this person told me, I don't know how true it is,
Right.
but this person had said that he had mentioned it before, but it
Right.
wasn't accepted. I said, well, Mother Dailey has to search things out for herself, and once she gets her answer from God, I said,
Then she
then she'll
moves forward.
accept it. Everybody
Right.
won't accept it because that's what I was saying, that I had already heard about the oneness of the Creator,
Right.
but Mother at the time it was told to me, either she knew it and she wasn't uh, uh, going to reveal it to the congregation because she knew everybody wasn't going to be accepting of that.
Right. She
She
had
said
to
it.
she had to
She already did.
spoon feed it. She had to spoon feed it little by little.
That's what she did too. She
Right.
did, because she started out with, "I have this. I have something to tell you that you wouldn't be ready." All right, but she was going. She right there. She put them on notice, and then she finally came and told us. I'll never forget her getting up and quoting Isaiah, and that's what led us from that point on. We did the Shemai. Mother
The
alter the
service.
out of the service so that it reflected that we now serve the oneness, because that was she said we serve, it's the oneness that we serve, and that's God is the oneness.
Beautiful, beautiful. Um, Going back a little bit on your history, the Woodard family, were they did they remain members of Temple Bethel, or after the speech of the oneness did they go their separate way?
Half and half.
Half and half.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, the mother and father, one daughter. Yeah, I think it's just the one daughter
Right.
uh remained under the oneness.
Right.
The others went with another
Yeah,
leader.
and I could imagine how difficult that was for families who who were together, and then now they became separate because one had one idea and the other one had the other idea of what they thought was right. So
Yeah.
that's really interesting. It's interesting the history of people. So with you say you went into the military. How was it for a female in the military? In the I assuming it was in it was 70s that you went into the military.
Yeah, it was well, I was married. I hadn't been in the
Oh,
military yet.
oh,
I was
okay.
I was just traveling with the husband that was in the
Oh, he was a
military.
military. He was a career military man.
Yeah, so I was traveling with him, and
Right.
then but later on in '81, I did go in the military. I was in the Air Force.
In the Air
Then
Force.
yeah,
Okay.
I went into the but I went into the Air Force Reserve, Air National Guard.
Oh,
It
okay.
wasn't too bad as long as
Okay.
it wasn't too bad for me until I got to uh
Training camp.
no until I got to well, at training camp was rough. No, training camp was rough. It really
Where do
was.
you have to do training camp at? Which one of the
I,
bases or
I was
training
down.
facilities?
I was down in Lapland when I
Yeah.
first went in. They send you go to Lapland
Right.
for your basic training,
Right.
and that and I had more female TIs trainers
Okay.
than I had males, and
Males.
they
Okay.
were. It was like they had to prove something.
They had to
They,
prove
they,
something.
Look, man, that you could be pulling your hair out. We had one enlistee. She tried to kill herself. She couldn't handle it.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they found that she had cut her wrist. She couldn't handle it, and
I guess
my
after
mother,
that they discharged her.
the my mother was a strong woman, so I could
Right.
take it.
Right.
So that's what happened. And
Right.
but I would always travel back and forth to Bethel on Fridays.
Right.
Fridays, I would, if I was able to have the leave to wasn't working, I would come to
Right.
Bethel
Right.
and stay the weekend because I had family here in Philly.
Right.
But it was rough. That training was rough. When I really experienced um, prejudice was when I was stationed in Virginia, and the sergeant there, he hated the fact that women were in the military, and he was one of those that you couldn't say if he asked you to speak, you speak. Other than that, don't even voice opinion, and if you apologize, don't forget it because it wasn't accepted. He was just a mean man. He was white. He was really
Right.
mean. So I made it my business to stay out of the way of people because I'm a very vocal person, and it wouldn't have benefited me because I was outnumbered.
So
So I kept my mouth
he was
closed.
against women being in the military, and then on top of it, you're black.
Exactly. I didn't want to go there, but yeah, that's exactly it. And
You had a double whammy against you.
you know that's how it is. I'm a female.
Right.
I'm black. Two marks against me
Two
already.
marks.
So
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I said so that's basically how I got to where I am. My parents was Baptist. I started out as a Baptist child, going to a church that's next door to me, and then
Baptist born, Baptist bred, but you're not gonna be a Baptist on the day that you're dead.
that's it. That's it. So that's where I started out at
Right.
as a Baptist person. Then I came to Bethel. Mother gave me a big sister. She's deceased now. Barbara
Right.
Matthews was my big sister, and she used to call me every uh, Friday. She would call me, try to convince me to come to service on Saturday. But then
Right.
I had a girlfriend who was trying to convert me to Catholic. So I would go on so I would go Sundays with her to the Catholic church at Fifth and Girard because
Right.
that's a big Catholic church there.
Right.
And I would go there with her, and then one day I came to Bethel, and I'll never forget this. They were praying, and I did this. I did this, and they the person that was standing next to me looked at me. I said, "What?" He said, "That's what they do in the Catholic. You're not Catholic." Because look. This shows you just how naive I was
Right.
about religious life,
Right.
about God, and knowing the different religions. to me, they all would one. You know,
Right.
you can all put them together. But at that age, and because I wasn't taught religion, I was just sent to a Baptist church to be in church on a Sunday. It wasn't until I met the Woodards, and then they would explain to me and tell me different things, and we would catch the bus on Friday nights or Saturday mornings and go to Congregation Temple Beth. I think at that time it was the Holy Commandment Church
Okay.
congregation. I think it was Holy Commandment Church. I think that was the name of it then. And we would go there. We were on Brown Street. We left Brown Street, went to Ridge Avenue, left Ridge Avenue, and now we're at 7350 Lober Avenue. Before that, when I became a member of Bethel, it was on Brown Street.
Okay.
That's it. And then Mother Dailey got a bigger place when we moved to Ridge Avenue. We used to get out and go down Ridge Avenue and solicit to get funds to help the congregation, continue to flourish. Look, I was good at that.
Right.
I would go down, I would come back with two, maybe $300. I was good at getting people to give me money so that to support Congregation Temple Bethel. Then when we moved to 7350, all that changed because now the fundraising approach was Mother had a nice big kitchen in there. We could sell more. We can have a lot more programs to help support the
The
congregation.
congregation.
But
Right.
yeah, but coming from Baptist to to Christian, because that's what I started out with, Christian with Mother Dailey, and then when she came into the oneness and she presented that to the congregation, we could see the divide. We saw the divide. People gradually, slowly stopped coming, and
Separating.
then
Right.
the members that were there, there were different families.
Right.
The Kirkland family was one. They divided. Some stayed. Others was a couple of them still there. Uh, uh, Went out. Some of the Woodard family went out, um, and a couple more of the members of the families went out because Mother introduced something to them that they could not understand or didn't believe. Because the oneness is the oneness,
There
and
you
she
go.
always quoted, like I said, from Isaiah to
Right.
let I'm. It's the Creator
I'm
is
one.
one,
That's right.
and that's Him, and there is no other. I give my glory to no other. Look,
Either
this
my
no
praise
one
to
is
graven
sharing this with
images.
me.
Right.
So that's how I got to Bethel, and I've been there ever since. And
Hallelujah.
I,
Hallelujah.
I think
So
I'll still be there for a little while longer. As far
God
as I
willing.
know of,
That's
but
right.
but change things changes. Changes occur. The more you know, the more um, you look at things differently.
Okay.
The more knowledge you have, the more you look at things differently. And like uh, we're on Zoom now. We're
Right.
on Zoom. We're not. Our whole way of worship the Creator has changed. Even though on Zoom we still do the service just like we do if we were in the temple. We
Right.
come in, we read from the Siddur. They have them all made out where it
Right.
comes up on the screen. Everybody can follow. You have the musicians down in the sanctuary, in the temple, at the temple,
Right.
and everybody else is on Zoom. So it's the same. The difference is you don't get to be in the synagogue. That's the only thing. But yeah,
And so I
coming to
guess we
Bethel.
just had to make we had to make adjustments for the times. The times call for adjustments. So that's okay.
Yeah, but it's really, when I look back now and see where I came from being a young girl at a Baptist church, and the route that I took, it took for me to get to know the oneness of the Creator, and now I have uh, much more knowledge. it just seems that this is the way it should have been
Right.
for me, is to travel this path so that I can understand that no, I'm not Christian, I'm not Catholic, I'm an Israelite, and I'm under the oneness of the Creator. It is His existence that I uh, share in, and it is it's Him who is really manipulating my life. He's the one
Hallelujah.
that's directing me. He's
Hallelujah.
no, really. I mean, this is what I'm saying. When I first came, I wouldn't be thinking like this. I
Okay.
never would think that God had anything to do with my life. But now I see from coming from that one picture that was on the wall that
Right.
drew me to want to see him. You can see how naive I was because I believed I could see the man,
Mm.
that I could sit down and talk to him.
Right. Right.
I mean, literally in person. But he
Right.
was not the one. But
Right.
he drew me to him with what I already had to work with.
Okay.
So
So, Lady
I don't know
Catherine,
if that helped you.
no, that was beautiful. I didn't have to ask any questions because you answered everything. So, in conclusion, because I don't want to keep you, I always ask all of my, I ask all of the people that I interview this question: how do you want to be remembered when it's all said and done?
When it's all said and done, I truly want to be remembered as a servant of the Creator and have done uh, great mitzvot
Okay.
in this world to help others, because I'm a survivor of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma cancer. I had a
Non-Hodgkin.
stem cell transplant a year ago, so I'm a year out of the hospital, and the Creator has kept me alive for some purpose, for some reason. And whatever it is, I want to make the best of my life while I'm still here that will
Okay.
benefit someone else. Someone else. So that's how I want to be remembered. That
How
yes,
how
I
how did
went
you
through all.
know? How did you know that you had this Hoskins? I guess it's called Hoskins disease, right?
Yeah, and in 2018, I was invited to a Hanukkah Hanukkah. That wasn't Hanukkah. That was
Purim.
what's no, which one comes before Hanukkah?
Um,
Doing the Yom Kippur, that's what it is.
Yom Kippur.
The Yom
Okay.
that's the yeah, doing that
Yep.
service. And so I came to that service, and I was coughing a lot. So I thought it was wintertime, and I was getting
It was getting cool, right?
a cold.
Yeah.
So I didn't think anything of it. But that night in service, that Friday night, they said to me, "Oh," they called me up from the. This is a white congregation,
Right.
and they called me up and they said, "We want you, Kathy, to come and do a Leah." And I'm saying, "No." That's what I said. I said, "No." I said, "I don't want to do a Leah." So they came down from the roster. These two ladies came down from the roster and pulled me out of the seat. And the two ladies that were sitting, one on the left and one on the right beside me, pushed me out in the aisle, and they escorted me up to do a Leah. I'm the only person of color standing up there, and
Right.
I'm saying, and I felt kind of uncomfortable, but
Right.
I went up and I did the Leah. That next, I think it was a Thursday. The next Thursday, by that next Thursday, I was livid. I was so sick. I
Right.
could barely breathe. So what I did, I called my doctor. He he did a uh
Blood test.
yeah, this was in September. Now I remember, September 2018. I called my primary doctor. He did uh, sent me to Temple to get, not Temple, Einstein, to get a X-ray of my throat, a CAT scan. They did X-ray of my throat because he examined me. He thought it was thyroid because I
Oh.
had this big lump on the side of my throat.
Right.
When she did the X-ray, she couldn't see everything down in my chest because of the way the doctor wrote the prescription. So she said to me, she said, I can't see everything. She said, but there's something else there. And so she said, I'm going to talk to your doctor. She talked to the doctor. He ordered a CAT scan. And when they ordered the CAT scan, they found that the cancer had spread. It was cancer, but they couldn't call it cancer then. They just saying it was just a mass. So he sent me to Temple, and
Right.
Dr. Braca did a biopsy on me. And that Saturday night, because that was a Thursday, that Saturday night they came at the hospital. They admitted me that very day. And that Saturday, they had the results from the biopsy. He told me, he said, you have non-Hodgkin lymphoma, and it is called triple sec, which means it's in your blood and it's aggressive. So we have to treat you with chemo aggressively. That was the hardest. Let me tell you, that chemo, I thought that was
Mm-hmm.
gonna put me in the grave. That's how intense that came. I was getting 11 different types of chemo in my body in a week. Actually, in a day, because the orange bag went out every other day. So throughout, and so that's how I found out all that coughing. That was that
The
the
cancer.
mass and everything that was in it, and it had spread from my throat all the way down to my stomach.
Mm.
That's how much. So I had to keep going back and forth uh, every 21 days to get chemo.
Mm.
And I had to stay in because I can't be treated on an outpatient basis.
Right.
So,
They
well,
have.
that's because the way the doctor explained to me, he said that's because your cancer is in your bloodstream.
It's in your blood.
Yeah, it's in my blood, and he said
Your white
the
blood
only
cells are
way to
fighting it.
treat
Yeah.
you, yeah, only way to treat you is you have to come in. And so I
Right.
did that for almost a year, 10 months. And
Okay.
then they discharged me Temple from the hospital.
Wow.
Three
That's
months
a.
later, it came back. 3 months later, it came back.
Okay.
It came back with a yeah, it came back with a vengeance. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't eat, I couldn't stand, I couldn't sit. I was in so much pain, I was crying all the time. So they finally put me back in the hospital, and that's when they treated me and told me that there's nothing else they could do for me, and that there's only one more option, and that was to have the stem cell transplant. And I went through a stem cell transplant. I did it with my own body. I didn't want to have anybody else's stem cells.
Right.
So I put myself through the apheresis treatment, and
Right.
had to come home with a needle sticking out my throat, and for 4 days. And then I went back, had the stem cell transplant, and
It worked.
thank the
Toda
creator
ya.
of the universe, I got through it, because in the office I was having a heart attack. They had to treat me immediately.
The
I got
stress
real
your body was going through.
Yeah, the doctor told me it was a 50-50 chance, because when I was in the office, he told me they had already given me the last round of chemo that I could take as a in and out patient. And he said to me, my sister's with me, he said, there is nothing else we really can do for you. He said, if it comes back this time, it's nothing we can do. He said, but there is one
Last
more
option.
option. And he said, this is very dangerous. He said, because of your age. And I said, yeah. And I said to him, he said, but I want you to go home and think about it. It's okay. I'll go home and think about it. I came back, and he said, did you think about it? I said, yes. And so he was telling me what he would do if it was his mother, how he would tell his mother. I said to him, I said, let me tell you this, and you already know how I think. The God that I serve,
Hallelujah.
if this is his will, that's what's going to be done. I said, so what do I have to lose? Let's go for it. That's what I told him.
Hallelujah.
And he looked at me, the other doctor in the office looked at me. I said, yeah. I said, what can we go for? I said, whatever the whatever God's will is, that's what's going to happen. I said, guess what? I'm all right with it.
There you go.
And that's
And
how,
on
and that's what I did. I went and had that. But let me tell you, he told me that doctor told me. He said, this is not an easy ride. He didn't use the word ride, but what he meant is that it's not an easy treatment
right,
to go through. And he wasn't lying. He told me everything he told me that could possibly happen happened.
happen.
And I think the third day they had to put me in quarantine. People couldn't come see me. I couldn't have any visitors because the first thing they dreaded was the first thing that happened because that's what couldn't could take me out.
Infection.
hmm And so, yeah, so I'm thankful that I know the Creator coming this path was a reason to come this path to know who the Creator truly is.
Hallelujah.
And knowing Him, I'm happy. I'm glad that I know Him. I'm glad I stuck with Bethel and believed in the teaching. I mean, I'm glad I wasn't one of them that split,
Right.
but I'm glad that I stayed with Bethel. So that's my story
Hallelujah.
uh, uh coming into
Hallelujah.
this way of life.
So,
And so the only thing I wished I could do is go back in time and see how the Israelites truly lived. The women, not so much the
right,
men, because that book is patriarchal.
right.
So if I could just go back into just see how they lived, what what was it about their lives? What was significant about their lives? Because you don't hear anything about the women, too much about the women anyway. But yeah,
Okay.
that's my story, and I don't
Hallelujah.
know, but I
So,
hope I gave you something.
you gave me a lot. So, on that note, we're going to end this interview. I really appreciate your words and all the information that you had, Lady Catherine Berry. It's been a pleasure speaking to you, and may the Most High God of creative heaven and earth be with you and bless you.